Hello, my name is Evelyn Anglin, and I'm going to be teaching you a rundown of how to understand the lore and origin of the Hershey's chocolate bar. Now, before you start questioning me or whatever, I want to ask you a simple question. When it's Halloween, what is one of the most common candies that you can think of that shows up around that time? It's Hershey's, isn't it? It's Hershey's. They show up everywhere, even when it's not Halloween time. Now, why would such a simple, common candy have such odd stories tied to it with an interesting owner? I'm going to be sharing that with you in the next few minutes. The reason I wanted to make this is because I have a major sweet tooth and I like eating chocolate. Now, I have done a lot of research and I have a lot of websites here on it. And so I just wanted to do some more research on an everyday chocolate that has some hidden stories and some fun information to share. Now, if you want to get into all kinds of research with whatever, you have to be willing to do your research. For the Hershey's Company, I have gone into a website called the Hershey's Archives where they have a whole lot of information on the Hershey's Company that I won't be talking about all in this video, but I am going to be touching up on some of it. Now, to get a start of understanding the Hershey's lore, you have to get to know the owner a little bit of Milton S. Hershey himself. To start off with, he tried around 3 times to start his own chocolate and candy businesses, but they all failed. He started in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Chicago, and New York, but those 3 failed. But on his 4th attempt, he went back to Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and his candy and chocolate business finally kicked off. Alongside his chocolate company, Hershey is also known for making an entire town by himself in 1903. It's called Hershey, Pennsylvania. One of his most notable parts of that town is how he made an entire private school for orphan boys. It focused on agriculture and vocational training, and while it's open to girls now and you don't have to be an orphan to apply, it still focuses on bringing in diverse students from backgrounds who have a struggling home life or have a rough upbringing, like struggling financially. And it is endowed to the Hershey Company, and it is also known as one of the wealthiest private schools in America. Now that we're done with that little introductory tidbit, we can now move on to the more interesting stuff of the history of the Hershey Company. Now, what I bet a lot of you don't know is that Hershey's is connected to the Titanic. Now, a lot of you might be wondering where that comes in, but it is in Milton S. Hershey himself, the owner of the Hershey Company. Now, during this time, Hershey had already made his business, but he and his wife Catherine were in Europe due to her having some chronic illness. Now, by this time, Hershey already had his company, but there was a bit of a problem with it back at the States. So he wanted to go on the Titanic to get back to it. But he soon made up his mind that he wouldn't reach his company at the time that he wanted to. So he decided to ditch going on the Titanic and go on a different liner to get there at his desired time. So with this little part of him skipping out, he also indirectly avoided going and surviving the Titanic. And a bit of an ironic fact about it is the liner that Hershey was on actually sent a message to the Titanic saying that they saw 2 giant icebergs on their path that the Titanic might come across. So do with what you will with that information. Another interesting fact about Hershey's is that they actually helped out in World War II with the rationing. In 1937, one of the leaders of the army came towards Hershey and asked if they could help make an emergency ration bar for them. And they only had 4 requests for this. They had to be 4 ounces, it had to be high in energy, it could withstand high temperatures, and it had to taste better than a boiled potato. The Hershey Company complied, and its first attempt was known as the D-Ration Bar. The downside was it was so incredibly thick that it had to be packaged by hand, and it also wasn't very pleasant tasting, and you could hardly bite into it in the first place. So even with all that effort made, it had to be thrown away and redesigned. Now, the redesign was known as the tropical bar, and while it could still withstand a lot of heat, it also tasted a lot better, and by later on in the war, they had produced more than 3 billion of them. Now, with that being said, now you can understand how Hershey's the company, or the owner itself, has came a long way to even be known, not even with a defined slogan, as the Great American Chocolate Bar. Now, hopefully you could understand some of the origin of the Hershey bar with all of its odd tales that come with it, from as something as common that you can get from Halloween. I hope you enjoyed this video. Bye!